This is the WZRD News for Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. Musical accompaniment by Dave Stryker from the album As We Are. When the ill-fated Akron Innerbelt was constructed in the 1970s, it tore through a predominantly black neighborhood and displaced at least 737 households. The road also forced many mom-and-pop businesses to relocate. Many of the displaced businesses never recovered or reopened. More than 100 businesses, many of which were black-owned, were shuttered. City officials at the time said it would be too difficult and cost an extra $4 million to reroute the Innerbelt to bypass the Wooster Avenue businesses. All but 3 small buildings on that stretch of Wooster Avenue were demolished. All are Negroes, some in business for the first time, who replaced white businessmen who had previously operated in the area, the Beacon Journal noted at the time. Ward 3 Councilman Ed Davis, the first black person to be elected to the Akron City Council in 1957, expressed his worry about the fate of their investments. The city would compensate the property owners when it seized their buildings, but most black business owners on Wooster Avenue were renters. Homel Calhoun Jr. does not recall his father receiving any relocation money for the Calhoun record shop. But he remembers the toll the closure of the business inflicted on his father. Seeing his dad's shop being taken away from him also made Calhoun hesitant to start his own business. Relocation required access to capital that many small black-owned businesses did not have. The amount the city paid out to business owners when it seized their buildings through eminent domain was insufficient, and those who could afford a down payment in a new neighborhood faced ongoing discriminatory lending policies. Relocated businesses also had to build new customer bases in other neighborhoods away from their loyal clientele. I'm not aware of any of them surviving, former Akron Deputy Mayor Dave Liebert said. Urban renewal pretty much destroyed that whole neighborhood, he said. A 1940 Akron Negro Directory points to more businesses that formerly stood in the path of what is now the Innerbelt. In a 1977 paper, University of Akron political science professor Frank J. Kendrick detailed how the Innerbelt decimated businesses. The major portion of the Innerbelt neighborhood has become a low-income, black majority area with an increasing number of substandard buildings. The black proportion of the population in 2 census tracts has surpassed 90% in the past 15 years. At the end of the completed freeway section, only 1 small cafe remains. In the entire neighborhood, only a few businesses remain along the line of freeway construction, Kendrick wrote. In addition to destroying the businesses that lay in its path, the construction of the Innerbelt also resulted in people and jobs moving outward and away from the city to the suburbs. Wealthier black families who could afford to move to other places after highways bisected their neighborhoods did so. Those who stayed behind were left with declining job prospects. The closure of black-owned businesses also meant the loss of role models who could inspire black youth to pursue their own entrepreneurial dreams. By the time the Innerbelt came through West Akron, 2 other major urban renewal projects had already divided and demolished large portions of the neighborhood, Grant, Washington, and Opportunity Park. These projects redeveloped predominantly black neighborhoods, which city planners had characterized as being blighted, for residential and commercial use. The collective impact of the Innerbelt and other urban renewal projects displaced many small black-owned mom-and-pop stores in residential areas and entertainment venues along major thoroughfares like North Howard Street, halfway between New York and Chicago on the train that drew jazz greats to town. As the city of Akron discusses what to do with the 30-acre stretch of vacated highway it acquired in 2021, Malcolm Costa, CEO of Community Action Akron Summit, and Calhoun urged city leaders to encourage economic growth and activity in the surrounding neighborhood. That area and the community still suffers from the crippling design of the Innerbelt, Costa said. One of the things that I think really ought to be looked at is ways to straighten some of that out, so that some of the streets that were at one time thoroughfares can be made thoroughfares again, and that will provide greater access and opportunity for such things as businesses to develop, he said. Businesses will naturally and organically develop if there are people who are able to reside in those areas, and there are opportunities for coming together. Calhoun wants officials to consider the needs of current residents who lack access to basic amenities like grocery stores in their neighborhood. People still live there, he said. Source: Akron Beacon Journal, February 8, 2022.